Good morning, New Zealand. It is Friday morning. Great day of the week, best day of the week as we head into the weekend. And this is Daybreak. Good morning to you. Yeah, it's the 17th of October. Honey has been setting a bit of a viral trend, hasn't he? She keeps on appearing. She's desperate for an appearance this morning, so we'll see how that goes if I have time. Very keen on her walk, so she's always waiting very impatiently. Let's just get into some of the news items. Look, I do just want to give a little skite. We totted up how many people had watched the testimonies of Issy and Zara, the detransitioners, and more than 500,000. And that's the full interviews across all our social media platforms. That doesn't include some of the reels and shorts that we've also published, which has been more than 100,000 as well. So it's been, look, this campaign has been as widely watched as the Israel and Maria Folau interview. Been quite an amazing response and great to get the narrative out, the very important narrative, which actually I'll come back to shortly. Let's just check some of the news items. So in the New Zealand Herald today, there's a piece about, now I'm just going to swap my screens around so I'm looking at the right place. Casey Costello and basically funding for the meth problem, because there's a big increase. Well, there has been some increase in meth use according to how they measure it, which is wastewater, and whether we're peeing it down the toilet or something. Is that how they measure it? But anyway, they argue there has been some increase. That it did decrease, but there's still concern. Any meth use is a problem. But remember, the Drug Foundation was saying, oh, we should decriminalise and that will solve the problem. And look, it's just about treatment. There was an interesting paragraph which I just highlighted in the article this morning. It says this: police research has found that offenders with a meth offence, a P offence, commit 3.7 times more murders and 3.4 times more violent acts. And the Drug Foundation want to decriminalise so they don't get those convictions, because apparently it's all health. You know what? It's both. It's both the enforcement of the law and sending a clear message to the community and to young people, and it's making sure that people who are convicted get the appropriate support and addiction services. So it's not a either or, it's actually a both. Very good article in the New Zealand Herald, also editorial by Patrick Walsh. Patrick actually was part of our Say No to Dope campaign, school principal. He's now at Sacred Heart College. And he just writes about the fact of the struggle that young people have with social media, the addiction, and says that, parents, we're talking about the social media bans, etc. Parents are really just asking for support. And I know this from experience. As a parent, you feel like you're the only one saying no. Every kid's got a phone. They're allowed to use it wherever, whenever. And there's kind of no community support saying, hey, there should be restrictions. We should be calling social media accounts, companies to account. And so interestingly, yesterday, there was an article in the Post in Christchurch, I think it was, I think it was Christchurch one. And it was a very good commentary, basically along the lines that I would use, is that Meta, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all the social media companies have acted without regulation. It's been the Wild West, and they've been allowed to use all these algorithms and target our kids and get them addicted and get us addicted. And if social media companies can listen into my conversation, and I mention the fact that I want to go to Hawaii and go to Honolulu, and suddenly all these ads start appearing targeting trips to Hawaii, Honolulu, you know what happens, eh? You start getting all these ads targeting. If social media companies are smart enough to give us the algorithms which feed into what we've been watching, then they also have the ability to put some protectors in place to protect young people. And it's interesting, so there's this select committee going on at the moment looking at this whole issue, which ACT set up. But it's really a talk fest at the moment, which is okay. It's good that we're even talking about the issue. But here's the interesting thing. Meta, which is Facebook, and TikTok, and Google, they've all shown up to this meeting because they know that their income is under threat, and they know that they've been called to account. And suddenly they're coming along and they're all trying to be nice. The time is over for niceness. We need to call them to accountability. Anyway, that's my thought on that one. That name suppression, remember that I was very upset by the pedophile with extreme dealing of pedophilia. What was it? Oh, I haven't got the piece of paper here, but it was a lot of, here it is, a lot of convictions. And it was the child abuse material, and there was name suppression. And so everybody, when there's name suppression, and there shouldn't be name suppression should only be used if you're protecting, if firstly, you're not sure whether the person is guilty or not. In this case, they are guilty, so the name should be released. And secondly, name suppression should only be used to protect the innocent, to protect the victim. But in this case, that's not actually happening. So why aren't we naming? And the problem with name suppression is that everybody then starts making assumptions. And the Mowbray family, one of them was Matt Mowbray, and apparently, and I think even on one of our commentaries, somebody put, "Oh, I know who it is. It's Matt Mowbray," and so we just removed that because it's breaking name suppression, but it's also false accusation. But judges need to think about this whole issue, because by doing name suppression on people who don't deserve it, they then shine the light on other possibilities. So not a good situation. Interesting case in Opotiki. They found these drug dealers dealing cannabis. You know, that nice cannabis that solves every medical problem, apparently, according to the activists. And the police say children were implicated in drug dealing, present at a property searched in Opotiki. And the police said, along with arrests and the drugs and evidence of drug dealing, of serious concern is the dealing from one address where children and young people were present and implicated in the supply of cannabis. Can I just remind you about what Chloe and Andrew Little and the government and the Drug Foundation were trying to persuade us in 2020 to vote yes on legalising cannabis? And one of the bits in the law said that it would be okay to grow up to 4 plants at home. Now, we actually did a bit of analysis of that. And if you grow 4 plants at home and you do it with good conditions, even hydroponic indoor setup, which a lot of cannabis growing is, 1 plant can produce a median of 1,527 grams per year. Now, what does that mean? That means that basically you could grow enough to have 8 joints a day in 1 plant. 8 joints. And they say you can grow 4 plants. So that's 32 joints. You ain't going to smoke that much. So what are you going to do with that surplus, which you're growing in the backyard with the kids watching and possibly using? And, you know, that's how dangerous that whole referendum was. And we dodged a bullet when New Zealand voted no. Interesting, this Broadcasting Standards Authority, they're going to come after Family First. The Broadcasting Standards Authority could be watching this right now, and they're going to, if someone gets hurty feelings by something I say, they're going to complain to the BSA. The Broadcasting Standards Authority are a waste of space, in my view. They've never made any really good decisions, any earth-shattering decisions. Look, if broadcasters do something illegal, it can be dealt with under other laws. But the Broadcasting Standards Authority have decided that they're going to go after online platforms. But they've never put any... It's only because one complaint has come through. And they haven't dealt with us. Like, if they wanted us to be under the BSA, they should be telling us that once a day we should broadcast a special announcement saying, if you hear things on this broadcast, then you can complain to the BSA. They've never done that. They've never been interested in online because we don't purchase licenses, public licenses. In fact, that was one of the commentaries, was that if you are part of, where is it? I did have it here. If you read the Broadcasting Act, one reason that online that broadcasters are treated different to, for example, what we're doing here, is that they are granted a chunk of the telecommunications spectrum. So, radio licenses, TV licenses. And so that's part of it. It's one of the conditions of using it for broadcast. Anyway, watch this space. They might come after us. We'll never know. I did just see this online, and I thought I'd just share it with you. The Focus on the Family founder, James Dobson, and his son printed this statement that James Dobson had written for his funeral. He passed away a couple of weeks ago. And I just like, so James Dobson wrote this for his own funeral. I just like this bit at the end that says, "Don't forget, I'll be watching for you just inside the Eastern Gate, where we'll celebrate a family reunion, the likes of which the world has never seen. Indeed, in that kingdom of all God's children will be reunited for eternity under the banner of Jesus Christ. Then he will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away," Revelation. And I really like this last sentence that James Dobson wrote. "My final charge for you is simply this: be there." Yeah, really, really nice statement, eh? From personal back to a few concerns. You know how I always say, read the Australian newspaper. If you're going to subscribe to a newspaper, use the Australian, because it actually prints both sides, and it allows conservative voices. And one of them is Helen Joyce, who is coming to New Zealand. So that's going to really wind up the media. What did I do with the article? It's online here. And a world-leading critic of gender ideology, Helen Joyce, has described the Human Rights Commission of lauding a human rights abuser. In other words, celebrating a surgeon who is helping with puberty blockers and gender confusion of kids. Dr. Joyce is appearing in Australia and New Zealand. So there we are. Expect a big hoo-ha happening in New Zealand when she comes over. And she's labelled Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen's claims about transgender youth suicide false and dangerous, which it is. It's a myth about you've got to trans the child or they'll commit suicide. That's been proven to be a myth. And she also said, the Human Rights Commission were going to give an award to Melbourne Royal Children's Hospital Director of Gender Medicine, who helps kids with puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and then moving on to surgical stuff. And she says what this organisation is doing now is it's lauding someone who's a human rights abuser. So that's a great little line, and she'll be coming to New Zealand. Now, fascinatingly, there's a new survey in the US that has shown that the trend of being non-binary and identifying as LGBT and as bisexual or whatever the names are, it's actually fading. Now I did have the little lead in there. I've got so much paperwork here. They're saying, according to a new survey from the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, the percentage of undergraduate students in the US identifying as other than their male or female sex, so biological, has dropped from 6.8 back in 2022 to just 3.6. So it's almost half. Is that the Trump effect? Is that the truth is coming out on puberty blockers? Is that the kids are just moving back to reality, biological reality? Here's another graph from the study. It's a large study. I'll do a McBlog next week on this one just to dig into more of it, and we'll also put up a read on the Family First website. But you can see there, so this is all the colours are different surveys from different undergrad areas, and you can see there that there was this increase basically during Biden, and now it's starting to decrease, and the fad seems to be over. Maybe it's the Chloe Coles that is getting the truth out. However, that doesn't stop our radicals who are involved with professional organisations. This is from my mate Glenn Stanton from Focus on the Family. He writes, in September, the American Sociological Association published a 3,000-word commentary on the need to explore and depathologize pre-adolescence children's erotic capacities. Sorry, this is breakfast time, I know. pre-adolescent children's erotic capacities. It was published in the ASA's journal Sex and Sexualities. The lead author is a professor in the School of Education at a University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. Let me just read the first line to show they're barking mad and bonkers. Sexualities scholarship marginalizes childhood sexual pleasure, positioning children as vulnerable subjects. This article repositions childhood sexualities within a pleasure-centered, globally oriented, and power-aware frame informed by feminist, queer, and decolonial perspectives. Wow, that is barking mad. It's actually grooming, isn't it? And yeah, very scary. Very scary is also Stats NZ that yelled out on Wednesday that apparently Wednesday was International Pronouns Day, and that we should maybe think about our own pronouns. Interestingly, I called this out on social media, and it seemed to, somebody said that it had disappeared from LinkedIn. I must check that. But this is Stats NZ, who aren't very good at doing censuses, are they? Can't even get that right. And the other thing is, remember the census where they asked you the question, what sex are you? So, male or female. But then they said, what gender are you? Apparently, that was a separate question with possibly a different answer. That's how bonkers Stats NZ are. So they're deeply flawed in whole radical sexuality and gender theory. And here they are promoting International Pronouns Day. So anyway, good on them. Now, on a lighter note, your passport, New Zealand passport. I always thought New Zealand passport was one of the most powerful, but they've actually done this ranking of the most powerful passports, and it's basically based on how many countries can you go in without a visa. And apparently if you have a Singaporean passport, you can go into 193 countries without a visa. New Zealand, where are we? 6th on the list. And apparently we can go into 186 countries without a visa, which it's not too bad, is it? So that's not bad. Interestingly, I wonder, does that include, like, if you have to fill in the ESTA for America, when you go to the US and you got to fill in that ESTA, is that a visa? Kind of like it is, eh? Anyway, I've always thought that our one has been trusted. Is everybody watching this story about TVNZ and Tallies? Tallies are suing TVNZ for defamation, basically saying that they broadcast fake news. It's a fascinating story, and I'm watching it very closely because if Tallies wins this defamation case, one, it's a real slam on the already low credibility of One News, but also the costs could be quite significant. And even TVNZ are panicking about it. So keep an eye on that particular case. All right. Because it's Friday, just another example of apostasy in the church and some idiots in front of churches. This is a church you don't want to go to. So this is a guy called Kurt Kaufman. He was recently ordained as a minister at the Federated Church of Green Lake in Wisconsin in the US, which is a Baptist church, unfortunately. Don't hold it against the Baptists. And a recent interview has surfaced on social media in which he argued that preborn children should be aborted rather than born into families that don't want them. This is a church minister.
Being in favor of reproductive rights, first and foremost, protects the life of the mother and protects the life of the person that is already living and is the person that is able to bring more life into this world should they choose. Furthermore, it protects the life of children. There are so many children that currently exist in this world that were forced to be born because of legislation, because of men that have decided for women. And so as a result, many children have grown up into a unsupportive, unhealthy, and outright challenging household that hasn't been a life that any child should live. And so being in favor of reproductive choice helps the life of children everywhere, because they don't have to grow up in a world that dislikes them because they simply exist.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, I just want to say that if you go to a church and the pastor wears a bow tie like that, maybe turn around and go out again. But anyway, I mean, isn't that just the dumbest idea? Anyway, that's some of the apostasy that is in churches at the moment. It's interesting because even non-Christians are calling out some of the truth in terms of what is going on in the world, including genocides, including in Nigeria, which nobody is marching across the harbour bridge for, wearing tea towels for, but Bill Maher, who's not a Christian, is calling it out.
What's going on in Nigeria? Your media sources suck. You are in a bubble. Not, and again, I'm not a Christian, but they are systematically killing the Christians in Nigeria. They've killed over 100,000 since 2009. They've burned 18,000 churches. This is so much more. These are their Islamists, Boko Haram. This is so much more of a genocide attempt than what is going on in Gaza. They are literally attempting to wipe out the Christian population of an entire country. Where are the kids protesting this?
Yeah. Thank you. Because no one will talk about it, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Here's the key bit.
It's Africa. That's why no one's talking about it, and they should be. You can't read about it in mainstream media. It's sad, so thank you for bringing
Well,
it
because
up.
the Jews aren't involved. That's why. It's the Christians and the Muslims. Who cares?
Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? Media nowhere to be seen. Chloe and Marama nowhere to be seen. So fascinating. Now, just to finish the week on a positive, Charlie Kirk was posthumously awarded the Medal of Freedom. Biden has given it to crooks like Hillary Clinton and George Soros, leftist cultural destroyer, funded leftist stuff all around the world, including, I think, in New Zealand to a certain extent. But President Trump has given the award to Charlie Kirk. That happened earlier this week.
But it was a horrible, heinous, demonic act of murder. He was assassinated in the prime of his life for boldly speaking the truth, for living his faith and relentlessly fighting for a better and stronger America. He loved this country. And that's why this afternoon it's my privilege to posthumously award Charles James Kirk, our nation's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, honey, do you want to say hello? Come on. Now, let me just check a couple of the posts before I go. Here's an interesting one. Mike says, because I wasn't wanted, I now have two wonderful girls. There we are. Linda says, that wimp is ridiculous. How can he be ordained? His mother gave him life. Akanihi says, whoa, that's probably all you can say. Mike says, how did that become a minister? They aren't Christian ministers. This is Alphabet People Church. Rosie compares it to a Fruit Loop. Rainish says transhumanism is a new ideology where a machine is capable than a human. It's rooted from individualist ideology where people abandon God. Exactly right. Justine says, it was our wedding anniversary on the 16th. I was very disgruntled that we had to share our day with International Pronoun Day. Pronouns are bonkers. Well, I'm sure, Justine, that you got the biology right, and it was a one man, one woman wedding. So you're on the side of truth. Rabbit Hole says, a continuing issue supporting the transitioning is networks like Netflix selling the positive message regarding sexuality and multiple genders. And wow, you guys have been busy this morning. And Anna said, yeah, it was so good to see that. I think that's the latest data on the trans fad fading away. It was good to see that. Thought of Charlie Kirk. And just finally, Muddy Water says, Broadcasting Standards Authority personnel all about make work projects. In other words, make work for themselves, make themselves legitimate. Lefty cancel culture hooey. There we are. And Catherine warns, careful, Bob, the Broadcasting Standards Authority may just get their wider scope. So yeah, exactly right. That's okay. We will just carry on doing what we're doing. And yep, there we go. Right. Quick appearance. Honey, you want to say hello to everybody? Honey, come on. Up. There we are. Here she is. Look, up there. Hello. Oh, there we are. Okay, there we are. She's after this. Yeah, go on. Okay, there we go. Come for a walk in a minute. Okay, right, everybody, we are out of here. Have a great weekend, and we will see you Monday morning, bright and early, 7:30. Cheers.